Hello! So, our first piece of programming when we get back is going to be the text adventure project. Now, a lot of students in the intro course ask, can I make a text adventure for my final project? I'm like, yes, that's a great idea. And in order to do so, they code a lot of specific things. They're starting to learn about objects and how they're connected, and they program a lot of specific things for their particular text adventure. But if they wanted to make another one, they would have to start from scratch again. This project talks about a great abstract way to think about an interactive fiction engine that lets you run adventures that are programmed through different kinds of data files. So that's number one. We're going to learn about a great abstraction and how to capture a lot of things using some text files. And number two, this is going to be the introduction to maps in Java. We've learned about dictionaries back in Python. The map is the word that we use in Java to describe that, and we're going to see how that comes into play. Because the rest of the semester we're going to spend our time thinking about how do we program a map? How do we put the underneath the hood stuff like we've done underneath the hood for stacks and queues and lists? What do we do to make a dictionary? What do we do to make a map? And so thinking about them, knowing how to program them in Java is going to be our first step toward that. So for this project, I'm going to walk you through the description of everything, tell you what's going on, just like I would do at the beginning of a lab. And then the next two videos are going to be walking you through the basic and intermediate steps of the lab, so you can see the ways that maps come together. So let's get going. Our text adventure. You might have seen these before. If you haven't, go play Zork, like I recommended in the team chat. And you get descriptions of where you are. It's just text, and question mark says, what do you want to do? And the user gets to type in their answer. The program answers back, hey, this is what you did. You took the eraser from the room. You have an eraser in your inventory. You can go from room to room. These were classic games. These were the games that I played when I was a kid, when my dad brought home our first PC and set it up with a monitor. We didn't have much graphics back then. It was just all text, all things in our head. So these are fun little ways to describe a world and walk around. So the basic and intermediary steps, which I'm going to walk you through all of the basic and most of the intermediate, you are going to have to turn something in by April 2nd to show that you're following along, getting things going on your computer. And then the final version, which has advanced features and at least one expert feature, is due the next Tuesday at lab time. And so there should be time for you to work through those, given the foundation I'm going to provide with the basic and intermediate parts. So there is a skeleton for this project. There are lots of pieces here. That's why I'm going to walk you through them. So the skeleton code has two enums in it, a direction and a verb. If we're going to try to understand what somebody types when they are answering questions at that prompt, saying, oh, what do you want to do? Well, I want to go west. Well, there's going to be verbs, the go part, and direction is going to be the west part. So the sentences, we're going to do some very simple sentence parsing, and that's also taken care of for you. So directions, let's go look at the code here. Directions, we can see there is north, south, east, west, northeast, northwest, etc. Up, down, in and out, and then unknown. That's going to be an option. They are parsed really quickly here. Same thing with verbs. You can go, you can look, take, drop, inventory, score, help. You can quit the game, or if it can't parse it, it returns unknown. So we are going to have these enums be very useful for us when we're trying to figure out how do I react, because we're writing a very general engine for interactive fiction. So we want to be able to describe when somebody says go west, we can identify that. Now we don't have to write that code. The command is the way that it parses and gives us a verb, a direction, and a noun. They're pretty much, these are the three things you're going to get back from a command. When we're like, take eraser, it's going to use a verb and a noun. When we say go west, it's going to use a verb and a direction. And when we say look west, it's going to take a verb and a direction. And so you might not use all three of these things, but there will be a command that has these three fields that we can access. This is how it's parsed. You can read that later. It's get verb, get direction, and get noun. Now, those are going to give us back those pieces in our code. Okay, so those are the enums that we're going to use. This is the command that parses a string and turns it into an object with those pieces inside it. And then the last piece is going to be this hendrix.yml file, a YAML file. This is going to be a structured text file that describes the whole world. If you notice up here at the top, we are in a room and we go to another room, and these rooms have things in them like erasers. This is the text that we're going to use to describe that. Here's the YAML file. And that hendrix.yml file is going to be describing things as if it's a dictionary. Type is a location, ID MC317. The name, full name, a short description, a long description, how you can get out of the room, the items that are in there. This is a dictionary that goes to basically a list of items. There is a chalk, blackboard, sun. Those are the three things in MC Reynolds 317. And then each of the items is going to have a name, aliases, other ways to talk about it, a description, a goal message, a score, is it portable or not? A lot of different little pieces that are being described. They're all described in language like this. And you'll find it here in our code out here, hendrix.yml. So every room is given a little section. They're separated by these three dashes. And each room is described in this. Okay, now to help you understand how it all fits together, this is a map that I drew of the third floor of MC Reynolds back at Hendrix. And you start off here in MC 315. You can go west to the hallway, you can go south to my office. The things that don't have boxes are places that can be referenced but don't really exist yet. Only the boxes that are gray are really described and available to enter in the room. The things on the right-hand side are the items that you would find in that room, and the items that have a star next to them are items that are portable, that can be picked up and dropped off and put in your inventory. So this is the setup of what's going on in the game. You are going to have to build an engine to load not just a specific game about MC Reynolds and the third floor, but any game that somebody can describe using this kind of key value dictionary map as a YAML file. So this is our goal. This is that abstraction we're making to be able to load up and understand this. We write it in textish code, structured text like this. Okay, so let's keep going. You'll find in that skeleton snake YAML, this is the way we are going to read the YAML. And again, we don't have to write it. We are going to load it up and I'll demonstrate how that works inside Adventure Demo here in just a second. So let's get going. The big things down here, the notes, you are going to be learning about hash maps and hash sets. These are going to be wonderful things that are going to be ways that we implement a map, just like we had an array list or a list queue. This is a hash map. The map is the interface and the hash is the specific way we'll learn. We'll learn two different ways. We'll learn a tree map and a hash map, or a tree set and a hash set. That's what we're going to do the rest of the semester. Okay, so let's go look at the code here for Adventure Demo. We start off, here's our public static void main string args. We're going to try stuff out because always dealing with user input in Java usually requires some kind of exception catching. We are going to be loading up our YAML file right here, and then make a new YAML object for each thing that the YAML loader reads. I'm going to call a function on it called print items. And what is that thing that comes back? That thing happens to be a map of strings to objects. Now note, in those angle brackets, we've always just seen one thing, or a thing that has a thing inside it. Now with a comma, we can say there are two things. So string, object are the types. Object, don't forget, object is that general thing that is like anything. The objects could be other strings, they could be other maps, it could be a list. There's lots of things that the object could be. And that's going to become important. We have to cast them when we use them. Okay, so this is the basics of the game. We're going to talk to the user, scanner. We have this command called com, and then we tell the user, hey, here's your question mark, here's your prompt. Parse the command and figure out what it was. This turns it into a structured object that we can use, and we say, hey, if we don't know what they said, we don't know what the verb is, we just say what? Otherwise, okay, you want to do something related to that verb. And then while they're not typing the word quit, we do this loop. This is the loop that plays the game right here from the do down to the while. Okay, so the bulk of our code is going to be here in the else. How do we understand what they have typed and what do we want to do with it? We're going to have to set up more things up here to have more memory, to have more understanding of the game, of what's going on, the objects. And then we're going to say, oh, when they typed in this, this is how I react. Those are the different places that come together. Okay, this is the exception catching part. The key thing we want to look at for examples of how to use stuff in this code is in print items. This is provided for you. Again, Dr. Yorgi structured a lot of this. He put in tons of comments. He loves comments. And so hopefully that will guide you as you read this through. Down here in print items, it brings in a map for a location. The location says, oh, get. This is a key critical thing about maps. Hey, location, go get the thing with this key items. Give it back to me. It's an object, but actually we have to cast that object to a list of maps of strings to objects. And notice how that corresponds to our YAML file. The location thing is a list. The items down here is a list with these dashes, bulleted list. And each of those is a string to object, string to object, string to object. Some things might be a list themselves, some things might be just an individual string. That's what this code means here. Okay, so if this room doesn't have any items, then we're going to say, hey, this room has no items. And we talk to the location again with get for name. Items and name are the keys, and the values, as we're seeing for them, items, name, those would be what gets printed off. Those would be what gets accessed. Okay, so if you do have items, well, it gave you back a list, and so we can iterate through them with our for loop. For each thing in my item list, I'm going to call it item attributes. That also has a name. It has an attribute if it's portable or not. We can see that again out here. Items, name. Is it portable? False. If it doesn't say portable, we're going to assume that it's true, that it is portable. We only really define the things that are stuck in the room, like blackboards and desks, as portable false. So, and then it gets printed off down here. If portable is not equal to null, and it's not portable, then say non-portable. Otherwise, just print off the item. Okay, what happens when we run this? Run the adventure demo. We get all of this stuff. It prints off each of the items in each of the rooms that we load. Some places have no items, some places do, and we get that prompt. We can say, oh, go west, take eraser. You want to take, find cheese. It's going to say, I don't know what that means, because the find is not one of those enumerated verbs. Any questions, please leave them in the stream comments underneath where I finally post this. I'm testing this out. Hopefully this is useful for us to get started. The next two videos, the first one's going to be talking about how to program the basic parts, and the second one is going to be talking about how to get going in the intermediate parts. Okay, we can do this.